Dr. Han Yuna stepped off the transport ship and looked at the empty mining colony spread before her. The wind howled across the dusty ground of planet Kepler 442b. Broken buildings stood like broken teeth against the orange sky. This place had been abandoned for 20 years after the mining company found nothing valuable in the ground. But Yuna was not here for mining. She was here because her instruments had detected something impossible. Energy readings that did not match anything in the known universe were coming from deep underground. As the lead scientist for the Galactic Research Division, she had convinced her superiors to let her investigate. "This place gives me the creeps," said Park Tae-ho as he unloaded heavy scanning equipment from the ship. The young engineer wiped sweat from his forehead despite the cool air. His hands shook slightly as he handled the delicate instruments. Kim Do-hyun jumped down from the ship with his weapon ready. The security officer scanned the empty buildings with careful eyes. "Stay alert. Just because this place looks empty does not mean it is safe. There could be anything hiding in those ruins." Yuna nodded and activated her portable scanner. The device beeped softly as it detected the same energy readings that had brought her here. The signals were stronger now. Much stronger. They seemed to come from a cave system. About 2 kilometers north of the colony, the readings are coming from over there, she said, pointing toward a range of crystal formations that jutted from the ground like giant fingers. "We need to find the entrance to the cave system." The 3 humans walked across the barren landscape. Their boots crunched on small crystals that covered the ground. As they got closer to the formations, the air began to feel different. There was a strange tingling sensation that made the hair on their arms stand up. Tae-ho checked his equipment readings. "The energy levels are off the charts. Whatever is down there is incredibly powerful. Are you sure this is safe, Dr. Han?" Yuna looked at the towering crystal spires. Each one was at least 50 meters tall and glowed with a soft blue light. She had never seen anything like them in all her years of studying alien worlds. "We have to investigate. These readings could represent a completely new form of energy. Think about what this could mean for science." They found the cave entrance hidden behind a cluster of smaller crystals. The opening was large enough for a small vehicle to drive through. Cool air flowed out of the cave carrying a strange sweet smell. The walls inside were covered with the same glowing crystals they had seen outside. Do-hyun switched on his flashlight and stepped into the cave first. "I will go ahead and make sure the path is clear. Stay close behind me." The cave tunnel sloped downward into the planet. The crystal walls provided enough light that they barely needed their flashlights. Strange symbols were carved into the walls every few meters. The symbols looked ancient and were unlike any writing system in the galactic databases. "These markings are incredible," Yuna whispered as she stopped to examine them. She took photos with her scanner and tried to run them through the translation software, but the computer could not match the symbols to any known language. Tae-ho kept checking his instruments as they walked deeper. "The energy readings are getting stronger. Whatever is causing this is still much deeper underground." They walked for almost an hour through winding tunnels. The path led them deeper and deeper into the planet. Sometimes the tunnel opened into large chambers filled with crystal formations. Other times it narrowed so much they had to walk single file. Finally, they reached a massive chamber that took their breath away. The ceiling stretched up so high that their lights could not reach it. Crystal formations covered every surface and filled the space with soft blue and white light. In the center of the chamber stood something that should not have existed. It was a dragon. The creature was enormous. From nose to tail it was at least 60 meters long. Its body was covered in scales that shimmered like starlight. Massive wings were folded against its sides. 4 powerful legs ended in claws that could tear through steel. The head was as large as their transport ship with a long snout filled with teeth. But the dragon was not moving. It lay in perfect stillness as if carved from stone. Crystal formations had grown around its body during what must have been centuries of sleep. Its eyes were closed and its breathing was so slow that they could barely detect it. "That is impossible," Tae-ho whispered. "Dragons are myths. Stories from old Earth, they never existed." Yuna approached the sleeping giant with careful steps. Her scanner was going crazy with readings. The energy was coming directly from the dragon itself. "This is not a myth. This is real, and it is alive." Ancient symbols covered the walls of the chamber. These were different from the ones in the tunnels. They seemed to tell a story in pictures. Yuna could make out images of dragons flying through space. Other pictures showed dragons fighting against dark shapes that seemed to consume everything they touched. One section of the wall showed dragons going to sleep in caves like this one. The final image showed a single dragon waking up when the dark shapes returned. "Look at these wall paintings," Yuna called to her companions. "I think they tell the history of this dragon and its kind. They fought some kind of enemy long ago. Then they went into a deep sleep to wait for the enemy to return. Do-hyun kept his weapon ready but remained at a safe distance. If that thing wakes up, we need to be ready to run. Something that size could crush us without even trying." As Yuna studied the wall paintings, she noticed something strange. In the final image, the dragon was not alone when it woke up. There was a smaller figure standing beside it. The figure looked almost human. She moved closer to the sleeping dragon. The creature was beautiful despite its massive size. There was something peaceful about its sleeping face, something that made her feel safe instead of afraid. Without thinking, she reached out and touched one of the crystal formations that had grown around the dragon. The crystal was warm beneath her fingers. The moment she touched it, everything changed. The crystal began to glow brighter. The light spread from her hand to other crystals around the dragon. Soon the entire chamber was filled with brilliant light. The dragon's breathing became deeper and more regular, and slowly, very slowly, its eyes began to open. The dragon's eyes opened like two golden suns rising in the crystal chamber. Each eye was larger than Yuna's entire body and glowed with ancient intelligence. The massive head lifted slowly from the ground as centuries of sleep fell away like dust. Baekryong the Eternal felt consciousness return to his ancient mind. For 500 years he had dreamed of the old wars and the enemies that consumed worlds. He had dreamed of his fallen brothers and sisters who had given their lives to push back the darkness. Now he was awake, and the first thing he sensed was danger. 3 small creatures stood in his chamber. They carried weapons and strange devices that hummed with unfamiliar energy. His first instinct was to defend himself. He had been betrayed before by species that seemed harmless at first. Do-hyun raised his weapon as the dragon's massive head turned toward them. "Everyone back away slowly. Do not make any sudden movements." But Yuna did not move. She stood perfectly still as those golden eyes focused on her. There was something in the dragon's gaze that was not anger or hunger. It was curiosity mixed with caution. Baekryong studied the small female who had touched his crystal and awakened him. She showed no fear even though he could crush her with a single claw. Instead, she looked at him with wonder and respect. This was unusual. Most creatures either ran in terror or attacked when they saw him. He reached out with his mind to touch her thoughts. This was an ability all dragons possessed but rarely used with other species. Most minds were too simple to understand dragon thoughts. But when he touched this human's mind, he found something unexpected. Her mind was complex and bright. She was thinking about the wall paintings and trying to understand his history. She was worried about her companions but also fascinated by meeting him. Most importantly, she felt no desire to hurt him or use him for power. For the first time in centuries, Baekryong spoke. His voice was like distant thunder rolling through mountains. The sound filled the chamber and made small crystals vibrate. "Who are you, small one? Why do you wake me from my rest?" Yuna gasped as the words formed in her mind rather than her ears. The dragon was speaking to her through telepathy. She could feel his thoughts touching hers like gentle waves. "My name is Han Yuna. We are explorers from the human species. We detected energy readings coming from this cave and came to investigate. I did not mean to wake you. I only touched the crystal because I was curious." Baekryong tilted his massive head as he processed this information. Humans. He had heard stories of this young species but had never met one. They were supposed to be short-lived and aggressive, war makers who spread across worlds like a disease. But this human's mind did not match those stories. "Humans," he said the word slowly. "I have slept for 500 of your years. When I went to sleep, your kind had barely learned to leave your birth world. Now you explore the far reaches of space." Taiho stepped forward despite his fear. His scientific curiosity was stronger than his survival instinct. "You have been asleep for 500 years. What are you? Are there others like you?" The dragon's attention shifted to the young engineer. Baekryong could sense genuine interest rather than greed in this one's mind as well. These humans were different from what he had expected. "I am Baekryong the Eternal, last guardian of the dragon race. My people once protected this galaxy from threats that would consume all life. We went into the great sleep to preserve our strength for the enemy's return. Yuna felt a chill run down her spine. What enemy? The wall paintings show dragons fighting dark shapes. Bekryong's expression grew darker. Golden flames flickered behind his eyes as ancient memories surfaced. The Void Devourers, creatures of pure hunger that consume matter and energy to fuel their expansion. They appeared from dark space 500 years ago and began eating entire star systems. He shifted his massive body and crystals fell from his scales like rain. My people fought them for 100 years. We drove them back beyond the galaxy's edge, but at great cost. Only a few of us survived. We chose to sleep and wait for their inevitable return. Doyun lowered his weapon as he realized the dragon was not a threat to them. How do you know they will return? Because they always return, Bekryong said with sadness in his mental voice. They are not truly alive. They are the opposite of life. They exist only to consume and grow stronger. They will keep coming until nothing remains. Yuna stepped closer to the dragon despite her companion's worried looks. Are they back now? Is that why you have awakened? Bekryong stretched his long neck and turned his head toward the cave entrance. His senses reached out across space, searching for the familiar touch of void energy. What he found made his heart heavy with dread. Yes, he said simply. I can feel them at the edge of your galaxy. They are few in number now, but they are feeding and growing stronger. Soon they will begin their advance inward, consuming everything in their path. The three humans exchanged worried glances. If this dragon was telling the truth, then their entire civilization was in danger. Everything they had built was threatened by creatures they had never heard of. How long do we have? Yuna asked. Bekryong closed his eyes and reached further with his senses. He could feel the void creatures moving between distant stars like shadows given form. Perhaps 1 of your years. Maybe less. They move slowly, but they are patient. They will consume the outer worlds first to build their strength. Taiho checked his communication device. We need to warn the Galactic Council. Every species needs to know about this threat. Your weapons will not stop them, Bekryong said gently. I have seen civilizations try. Energy weapons feed them. Physical weapons pass through them like smoke. Only dragonfire and ancient magic can truly hurt them. Yuna looked up at the massive dragon with determination in her eyes. Then we need your help. Will you fight with us? Bekryong studied her face carefully. In her expression he saw something that reminded him of his own people. She was willing to face impossible odds to protect others. She would rather die fighting than live in fear. I am the last of my kind, he said after a long moment. But perhaps I do not have to fight alone. Your species has grown strong while I slept. Show me what humans are capable of. The dragon slowly began to rise to his full height. Crystals scattered as his massive form unfolded. His wings spread wide, casting shadows across the chamber walls. I choose to trust you, Hanyuna. Help me save your galaxy. 3 weeks had passed since Bekryong awakened in the Crystal Cave. Now he stood in the main hangar of the human space station orbiting planet Kepler 442b. His massive form barely fit in the largest chamber the humans could provide. Engineers and scientists moved around him like tiny insects studying his ancient body. Yuna had convinced the Galactic Research Division to move their entire operation to support the dragon. Admiral Lee Minho had arrived with a full fleet after hearing her initial report. At first he had not believed that dragons were real. Now he stood speechless before Bekryong's golden eyes. The reports were true, Admiral Minho whispered to his aide. We are looking at a creature that has lived for thousands of years. A being that has fought wars we cannot imagine. Bekryong lowered his great head to speak with the small human admiral. Your fleets are impressive for such a young species, but they will not be enough against what is coming. The Void Devourers consume energy itself. Your weapons will only make them stronger. Through the hangar windows they could see the human battle fleet. Hundreds of ships filled the space around the station. Cruisers and destroyers armed with the most powerful weapons humanity could build. To the humans it looked like an unstoppable force. To Bekryong it looked like toys. Yuna had spent every day with the dragon learning about the ancient war. Through their growing mental connection, she had seen flashes of his memories, entire worlds consumed by darkness, dragons dying as they fought creatures made of hungry void, the final desperate choice to enter the Great Sleep. "There must be something we can do," she said as she approached Baekryong. "You said dragonfire could hurt them. You are still here. You can still fight." Baekryong's golden eyes focused on her with an expression that was both sad and fond. "I am one dragon, little Yuna. In the old war there were thousands of us. Even then we barely won. The cost was everything we held dear." He paused and seemed to make a difficult decision. "But there is one possibility. Something that has never been tried before. A bonding between dragon and another species. A sharing of power and purpose that could make both stronger." The scientists in the hangar stopped their work to listen. This was the first time the dragon had mentioned any solution to their impossible situation. "What kind of bonding?" Yuna asked, stepping closer to his massive head. "In the ancient times, dragons sometimes bonded with others of our own kind. Two minds becoming one while remaining two beings. Shared thoughts, shared power, shared destiny. But it has never been done with another species. The risks are unknown." Admiral Minho stepped forward. "What are the risks? What could happen?" Baekryong turned his attention to the Admiral. "Death, most likely. The human mind might not survive the connection to dragon consciousness, or the dragon might lose himself in alien thoughts. We could both die or both go insane." Yuna did not hesitate. "I will do it. If it gives us a chance to save everyone, then I will take that risk." "Yuna, no," Taiho called out from where he was working on scanning equipment. "We do not know enough about this. It could kill you." But Yuna was already walking toward the dragon. She had made her choice the moment she first touched the crystal in the cave. Something about Baekryong called to her. She felt connected to him in ways she could not explain. "I have been thinking about this for days," she said, looking up into the dragon's golden eyes. "In my dreams I see your memories. I feel your sadness about your lost people. I think the connection is already beginning." Baekryong studied her face carefully. He could sense her determination and her courage. She was willing to risk everything to protect her species and all the others in the galaxy. This reminded him of why dragons had become guardians in the first place. "The bonding ritual is simple but dangerous," he explained. "I will need to touch your mind completely. You will experience every memory I have ever formed. Thousands of years of joy and pain and loss. Many humans would break under such a burden." Yuna placed her small hand on the scales of his snout. Even this light touch sent waves of sensation through both their minds. "I am stronger than I look. And I am not alone. I have my friends and my people supporting me." The dragon closed his eyes and began to hum deep in his chest. The sound vibrated through the hangar and made the metal walls ring like bells. Ancient words in the dragon language filled the air with power. Everyone in the hangar felt the energy building. The air itself seemed to thicken and glow with golden light. Yuna's hand began to shine where it touched the dragon's scales. The mental connection that had been growing between them suddenly became a flood. Yuna gasped as Baekryong's consciousness rushed into her mind. She saw his hatching in a crystal cave much like the one where she found him. She felt his first flight among the stars when the galaxy was young. She experienced the joy of meeting his dragon siblings and the pride of becoming a guardian. She felt the horror of the first void attacks and the desperation of the long war. The grief of watching his people die one by one until he was the last. But Baekryong also felt her memories flowing into his mind. Her childhood on Earth, looking up at the stars and dreaming of exploration. Her years of study and her passion for discovering new things. Her love for her friends and her determination to protect the innocent. Most importantly, he felt her hope. Despite facing impossible odds, she believed they could find a way to win. She trusted that good could triumph over evil if people were willing to sacrifice for each other. The golden light around them grew brighter and brighter until everyone in the hangar had to shield their eyes. When the light finally faded, Yuna and Baekryong stood connected by bonds deeper than blood. "It is done," Baekryong said, and his voice now carried harmonics that had not been there before. "We are bonded. Dragon and human united in purpose." Yuna opened her eyes and they now held flecks of gold that matched the dragon's gaze. She could feel his strength flowing through her and sense his thoughts as clearly as her own. "I can feel everything," she whispered in wonder. "Your power, your knowledge, your memories. But I am still myself." "And I am still myself, but more than I was," Baekryong replied. "Through you I understand humanity better." You are not the young aggressive species I expected. You are guardians like we were. Protectors of the innocent. Admiral Minho stepped forward with new respect in his eyes. What happens now? How do we use this bond to fight the Void Devourers? Yuna and Bekryong turned to look at him and spoke in perfect unison. Now we wake the other dragons. The Void Scout ships appeared at the edge of the Centauri system like dark tears in space itself. They moved without sound or light, consuming everything in their path. The mining station on Proxima 7 simply vanished as if it had never existed. 3 million people gone in seconds without even time to scream. Captain John Woojin received the emergency signal while commanding the evacuation of the outer colonies. His face went pale as he watched the sensor readings. Get everyone out now. Do not stop to save equipment or supplies. These people have minutes, not hours. On his bridge screen, he could see the void ships approaching. They looked like holes cut out of reality, surrounded by writhing tentacles of darkness. Where they passed, the very stars seemed to dim and fade. Sir, the last transport is away. His communications officer reported. All civilians are clear of the system. Then we run too, Woojin ordered. Full speed toward the inner systems. Send word to Admiral Minho that the attack has begun. Meanwhile, on the command station orbiting Kepler 442b, Yuna felt the deaths of those 3 million people through her bond with Bekryong. The dragon's ancient heart grieved for lives lost while his warrior spirit burned with the need for vengeance. They have begun their advance, Bekryong announced to the War Council gathered around him. The outer colonies are falling. We have perhaps 6 months before they reach the core worlds. Admiral Minho studied the tactical displays showing void ship movements. Our fleets are moving to intercept, but if what you say is true, our weapons will not stop them. Conventional weapons will feed them, Yuna confirmed. She had accessed Bekryong's memories of the ancient war and seen how energy weapons only made the void creatures stronger. We need to wake the other sleeping dragons. They are our only hope. Through their bond, Yuna and Bekryong had located 3 more dragon sleeping sites. Each was hidden on a different world in crystal caves similar to where she had found him. But waking them would not be easy or safe. The bonding nearly killed you, Taiho pointed out with worry in his voice. Now you want 3 more people to risk the same thing. Yuna smiled at her old friend. I did not die. And neither did Bekryong. We are stronger together than we were apart. We need to find the right people to bond with the other dragons. She turned to address the room full of military officers and scientists. We need volunteers. People who are willing to risk everything to save the galaxy. The dragons will choose their own partners based on compatibility. The response was immediate. Dozens of people stepped forward, ready to volunteer for the dangerous bonding ritual. From these volunteers, they selected 3 candidates based on psychological profiles and mental strength. Park Sun-ho was a brilliant engineer who had helped design the latest human starships. His mind was logical and methodical, which might work well with dragon wisdom. Kang Sola was a marine commander known for her fierce courage in battle. Her warrior spirit could complement dragon power. Nam Jiwon was the fleet's best pilot with reflexes faster than any human on record. The first dragon they found was Cheongryong the Wise, sleeping beneath the crystal forests of Titan Delta. When they woke him, he was suspicious and angry until Bekryong vouched for the humans. The bonding ceremony with Sun-ho took place in a cavern filled with blue crystal formations. The engineer screamed as ancient dragon knowledge flooded his mind, but he survived the joining. Hongryong the Fierce slept in the volcanic caves of planet Infernia. Her temper was legendary even among dragons, and she nearly attacked the rescue team when they woke her. But when she sensed Sola's determination to protect the innocent, she agreed to attempt the bond. The ceremony took place surrounded by flowing lava and the heat of the dragon's anger. The last dragon, Gumryong the Swift, was found in the ice caves of the frozen world Arcturus Prime. He was the youngest of the ancient dragons and the most curious about the humans who had found him. His bond with Jiwon happened quickly and smoothly, as if they had always been meant to fly together. Now 4 dragon-human pairs stood ready to face the void threat. But they needed time to train and learn to work together. Dragon power combined with human technology in ways that had never been tried before. Yuna and Bekryong worked to coordinate the training. Through her bond, she could speak with all the dragons while the human partners learned to handle abilities they had never imagined. Sunho discovered he could enhance human technology with dragon magic. His engineering projects now incorporated both science and ancient power. The ships he designed could move faster and hit harder than anything previously built. Sola found that her combat skills were multiplied 100 times over. She could move with dragon speed and strike with dragon strength. Her tactical knowledge was enhanced by Hongryong's thousands of years of battle experience. Jiwan learned to fly not just ships, but through space itself. With Gumryong's power, he could travel faster than light without any ship at all. They became the ultimate reconnaissance team, able to scout enemy positions instantly. But even as they trained, the void advance continued. More systems fell every week. Billions of people evacuated toward the galactic core while the human fleet fell back in fighting retreat. The enemy was still building strength by consuming the outer worlds. Captain Wu Jin commanded the rear guard, trying to slow the void advance. His ships hit and ran using guerrilla tactics to buy time for the evacuations, but they could not stop the enemy, only delay them. "We are losing this war," he reported during a strategy meeting. "For every system we evacuate, they consume 2 more. At this rate, they will reach Earth within 4 months. Ambassador Choi Eun-ji had been working to unite all the galactic species against the void threat. The Altarian Union has agreed to commit their entire fleet. The Zephyrian Empire is sending 3 battle groups. Even the usually neutral Christek Collective is mobilizing for war." But Baekryong shook his massive head sadly. "In the ancient war, we had allies too. Dozens of species fought beside us. They all fell to the void hunger. Only dragonfire could truly hurt the enemy." Yuna felt his memories of those lost civilizations. Entire species consumed to feed the growing darkness. She also felt his hope that this time might be different. Humans had shown abilities that surprised even an ancient dragon. "The void ships are massing at the edge of the Centauri Nebula," Admiral Minho announced as new intelligence came in. "Our scouts report over 1,000 enemy vessels. They are preparing for a major assault." Through her enhanced senses, Yuna could feel the void presence growing stronger. It was like a cold wind that froze the soul and drained the will to fight. But she also sensed something else. A massive presence approaching from deep space. "There's something else coming," she announced to the War Council. "Something much larger than the scout ships. I can feel it moving through the void between galaxies." Baekryong raised his great head in alarm. "The Void Titan. I had hoped it was destroyed in the ancient war. If it still lives, then we face our greatest challenge." "What is a Void Titan?" Admiral Minho asked, though he feared the answer. "Death itself given form," Baekryong replied with dread in his mental voice. "A creature the size of a moon that feeds on the life force of entire worlds. In the old war, it took 10 dragons working together to drive one away." Yuna felt a chill run through her soul, but she did not despair. Through her bond, she could sense the strength of her human companions and the determination of her dragon partner. They had come too far to give up now. "Then we'd better get ready," she said with quiet determination. "Because ready or not, the final battle is coming." The Nexus system hung in space like a jewel surrounded by the largest fleet in galactic history. Ships from dozens of species filled the void around the strategic hyperspace junction. Human cruisers flew alongside Altarian crystal ships and Zephyrian biovessels. Over 10 million beings prepared for the battle that would decide the fate of all life in the galaxy. Admiral Yu Seungmin stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Hope, watching the final preparations. The grizzled veteran had fought in 3 wars, but nothing had prepared him for this. Through the view screen, he could see the 4 dragon-human pairs floating in space without ships or suits. They moved like living stars, radiating power that made his instruments scream warnings. "All fleets report ready, sir," his communications officer announced. "The dragon pairs are in position at the vanguard." In the distance, space itself began to tear apart. Dark holes opened in reality, and the void fleet poured through like a plague of shadows. Thousands of enemy ships emerged from the emptiness between galaxies. Each one was a wound in space that hurt to look at directly. But behind them came something that defied description. The Void Titan was larger than some moons and shaped like a massive spider made of hungry darkness. Its legs reached out across light years, and its central body pulsed with the stolen life force of 1 billion consumed worlds. Yuna floated in space beside Baekryong, feeling the dragon's ancient dread through their bond. Around them, their 3 companion pairs took up formation. She could sense their fear, but also their determination. They would fight to the last breath to protect everything they held dear. "Remember the plan," she broadcast to all the dragon-bonded pairs. "We hold the line while the fleets engage the smaller ships. Do not attack the Titan until we can coordinate our assault." It will try to drain our life force if we get too close. The battle began with a roar of energy that lit up the entire system. The combined galactic fleet opened fire on the void ships with everything they had. Laser cannons and particle beams and fusion torpedoes filled space with deadly light. But as Bekryong had warned, their weapons only made the enemy stronger. The void ships absorbed the energy attacks and grew larger. Their dark tentacles reached out to grab allied vessels and drain them of power. Within minutes, dozens of ships simply vanished, consumed completely by the hungry darkness. All units switched to kinetic weapons only, Admiral Sungmin ordered. Use railguns and mass drivers. Physical projectiles seemed to have some effect. The dragon pairs dove into the enemy formation like avenging angels. Bekryong breathed golden fire that actually hurt the void creatures, while Yuna used her enhanced abilities to coordinate the battle. Her consciousness expanded across the entire battlefield, tracking thousands of ships and their movements. Sunho and Cheongryong worked together to enhance the allied weapon systems. The wise dragon's knowledge, combined with human engineering, created new types of ammunition that could disrupt void energy patterns. Ships that had been helpless before began to score actual hits. Sola and Hongryong carved through enemy formations like a sword of righteous fury. The fierce dragon's battle rage enhanced the Marine commander's tactical skills until they fought with the precision of a master and the power of a natural disaster. Jiwon and Gumryong darted between enemy ships too fast for the void creatures to target. They planted modified bombs that Sunho had designed to overload void energy systems. Explosions of pure white light began to appear among the enemy fleet as their devices took effect. For a moment, it seemed like they might have a chance. The combined fleet was holding its own, and the dragon pairs were making real progress against the void ships. But then the Void Titan entered the battle and everything changed. The massive creature reached out with tendrils of darkness that stretched across the system. Where they touched allied ships, the vessels simply ceased to exist. Entire squadrons vanished without a trace, leaving not even debris behind. The life force of their crews was absorbed to feed the Titan's impossible hunger. Fall back, Admiral Sungmin ordered as his fleet began to disintegrate around him. All ships retreat to the secondary line. We cannot fight that thing. But Yuna felt Bekryong's resolve harden through their bond. The ancient dragon had faced a Void Titan before and knew what had to be done. Through their connection, she saw his plan and felt her heart sink. It would require a sacrifice that might destroy them all. Dragon pairs, form up on me, she called to her companions. We are going in. Yuna, no. Taiho's voice crackled over the communication system from his position on the command ship. That thing will kill you all. She could feel her old friend's fear and love through the radio waves. But she also felt something else. The hopes and dreams of every human in the galaxy. The trust that billions of people had placed in her when they learned about the dragon bonds. Sometimes the only way to save everything is to risk everything, she replied. Trust me, Taiho. Trust all of us. The 4 dragon-human pairs flew straight toward the Void Titan as it reached out with hungry tentacles to consume more ships. As they approached, Yuna felt the creature's terrible presence trying to drain her life force. It was like flying into the heart of a black hole that consumed hope itself. But she also felt something else. The combined will of every person fighting in this battle. Human determination enhanced and focused through dragon power. The refusal to surrender even when facing impossible odds. Now! She screamed across all channels. Hit it with everything we have. 4 streams of dragon fire converged on the Void Titan's central body. Golden flames met writhing darkness in a collision that lit up the entire system. For a moment, the creature reeled back as if in pain, but then its tentacles lashed out, seeking to drain the dragons before they could hurt it further. One tentacle wrapped around Gumryong and Jiwon. Yuna watched, in horror as her friends began to fade as their life force was stolen. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of being consumed, they began to fight back from within the creature's grasp. Through the dragon bonds, she could feel what they were doing. They were not just being drained. They were pushing back. Human stubbornness and dragon power combined to resist the Titan's hunger. For the first time in eons, one of its feeding tentacles was being rejected. It is working, Bekryong roared in amazement. The bond makes us stronger than the sum of our parts. Press the attack. But even as they fought, the Void Titan was adapting. More tentacles reached out and the creature's central body began to pulse with stolen energy from the consumed ships. It was learning to counter their resistance. Yuna realized they needed more power. More than just 4 dragon-human pairs could provide. They needed the combined strength of everyone fighting in this battle. Human and alien alike united in the refusal to surrender. She reached out through her bond with Bekryong and touched the minds of every person in the Allied fleet. Through the dragon connection, she spoke to them all at once. "We need your help." Her voice echoed in the minds of millions. "Lend us your strength, your courage, your refusal to give up. Help us save everything we love." The response was immediate and overwhelming. From every ship in the fleet, she felt the answer. Human determination and alien hope and universal love for life itself. The will to protect the innocent and preserve the future for children not yet born. Power flowed through the dragon bonds like a river of liquid starlight. Not just from the four pairs, but from every soul fighting in the battle. The dragons became conduits for the combined life force of the entire galactic alliance. When they struck the Void Titan again, it was with the power of 10 million beings united in common cause. The creature's scream of rage and pain tore through dimensions as pure life force burned away its darkness. But the effort was taking its toll. Yuna could feel herself fading as she channeled more power than any mortal was meant to handle. Around her, the other dragon-human pairs were reaching their limits as well. The Void Titan gathered itself for one final desperate attack. Its remaining tentacles reached out not for the dragons, but for the defenseless fleet behind them. It would drain every ship in the system to restore its strength. Yuna looked at Bekryong and saw her own resolve reflected in his golden eyes. They both knew what had to be done. The only way to save everyone was to give everything. "For the future," she whispered as they flew directly into the creature's central body, prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice. Yuna and Bekryong flew into the heart of the Void Titan, surrounded by pure darkness that tried to consume their very souls. The creature's central body was a maze of writhing shadows and stolen memories from billions of consumed lives. As they penetrated deeper, Yuna felt the weight of all that death pressing down on her mind. "I can feel them," she gasped through their mental bond. "All the people this thing has killed? Their voices are crying out for justice." Bekryong's dragon fire blazed brighter as ancient fury filled his heart. "Then we shall give them justice. But the cost will be everything we are." Around them, the other three dragon-human pairs fought desperately against the Titan's defenses. Tentacles of pure hunger lashed out, trying to drain their life force, while waves of despair crashed against their minds. But none of them wavered. They had made their choice to stand between the darkness and everything they loved. On the bridge of the flagship, Admiral Shungmin watched in amazement as readings showed the Void Titan actually weakening. "How are they doing it? Our best weapons could not even scratch that thing." His science officer checked the sensors with shaking hands. "Sir, the dragon pairs are not just fighting it. They are somehow converting void energy back into normal matter. They are undoing what it consumed." Through the command ship's communication system, they could hear Yuna's voice broadcasting to the entire fleet. Her words carried the weight of absolute conviction. "This is our choice," she said, speaking to every human in the battle. "Not just the bonded pairs, but all of us. We choose to fight. We choose to protect the innocent. We choose to give our lives meaning by standing against the darkness." In response, millions of voices answered across all the communication channels. Human and alien voices united in a single declaration of defiance. "We choose to fight." The words echoed through space and time, carried by dragon bonds and enhanced by ancient magic. They reached every corner of the galaxy where people huddled in fear, waiting to learn their fate. On Earth, children looked up at the stars and whispered the words. On distant colonies, families held each other and added their voices to the chorus. The combined will of an entire galaxy, focused through four dragon-human pairs and aimed like a weapon at the heart of the Void Titan. What happened next had never occurred in all the eons since the Void creatures first emerged from dark space. The Titan began to break apart from within, not destroyed by outside force but transformed by the power of choice itself. The stolen life force it had consumed began to reject its hunger and demand freedom. Yuna felt herself dissolving as more power flowed through her than any mortal body could contain. She was becoming something beyond human, yet still herself. Around her, Bekryong's ancient form was changing too as dragonfire merged with human determination to create something entirely new. "I cannot hold this much longer," she whispered as her physical form began to fade. "Then we finish it now," Bekryong replied, and she felt his love for her flowing through their bond stronger than any power they had wielded. Together, they released every bit of energy they had absorbed from the Galactic Alliance. The combined life force of billions of thinking beings exploded outward in a wave of pure creation. Where it touched the void titan's darkness, that hunger was replaced by hope. Despair became determination. Death became life renewed. The explosion lit up the entire Nexus system brighter than any star. When the light faded, the void titan was gone. In its place floated clouds of normal matter that sparkled with the reflected dreams of everyone who had contributed to its transformation. The remaining void ships fled back into dark space without their master to guide them. They would return someday, but not for many centuries. The galaxy was safe and life would continue, but the cost had been terrible. Of the 4 dragon-human pairs, only 2 remained visible in normal space. Sunho and Cheongryong floated unconscious but alive, their bond intact but forever changed. Sola and Hongryong had survived, but the fierce dragon was now only half her original size, and the Marine commander's hair had turned completely white. Jiwon and Gumryong were nowhere to be seen. They had sacrificed themselves completely to help channel the final burst of power that destroyed the Titan. Their essence had merged with the fabric of space itself. Becoming part of the galaxy they died to. Protect and Yuna. Yuna was. Where is she? Taiho screamed across the communication channels as rescue ships raced toward the battle site. Where is Yuna? I can see Baekryong, but where is she? The ancient dragon floated in space much smaller than before. His golden scales had turned silver and his eyes held depths of sorrow that spoke of ultimate sacrifice. When he finally responded, his mental voice was quiet with grief. She is here, he said simply. She is everywhere and nowhere. The bonding was too complete. We shared everything, including the moment of dissolution. I exist because she chose to anchor me to this reality. She exists because I chose to remember every moment we shared. As if in response to his words, a familiar voice echoed across all frequencies. Yuna's voice, but changed somehow, enhanced and expanded beyond its original limits. I am here, she said, and her words carried comfort to every soul who heard them. I am different now, but I am still me. Still the girl who wanted to explore the stars and protect the people she loved. Slowly a form began to take shape next to Baekryong. Not solid flesh, but something made of starlight and possibility. Yuna as she had chosen to become rather than as she had been born. Human in heart, but expanded beyond the limits of mortality. The bonding changed us both, she explained as Taiho's ship approached. We shared more than power. We shared existence itself. I am still Yuna, but I am also part of Baekryong. He is still a dragon, but carries human dreams within his heart. The reunion was tearful and joyous as the surviving heroes were brought aboard the rescue ships. The galactic fleet began the long journey home, carrying news of victory to worlds that had feared they would never see another sunrise. But even in victory, there were questions that needed answers. Ambassador Choi Yoonji met with the changed dragon-human pairs to discuss what would happen next. The void creatures will return eventually, she pointed out during the debriefing. This was not their main force, but only an advance group. What do we do when they come back in greater numbers? Yuna, in her new form of living light, smiled with confidence that reached across dimensions. We will be ready. The bonding process can be taught to others. Humanity and dragons working together can face any threat. Baekryong nodded his silver head in agreement. For 500 years I slept alone, believing my people were extinct. Now I know they live on in a new form. Dragon hearts beating in human chests, human dreams soaring on dragon wings. In the months that followed, the galaxy began to change. The dragon-human bonds had opened new possibilities for cooperation between all species. Technologies that combined science and magic began to appear. Ships that could travel faster than light without engines. Weapons that transformed enemies instead of destroying them. Most importantly, people began to understand that the greatest power was not in weapons or magic, but in the choice to protect others. The choice to stand against darkness even when victory seemed impossible. The choice to hope when hope itself was under attack. Yuna established a new academy on the Crystal World where Baekryong had first awakened. There they would train future dragon-human pairs and teach the lessons learned from their great sacrifice. The price of victory had been high, but the future it had purchased was beyond measure. On clear nights when the stars shone brightest, children across the galaxy would look up and see something new in the sky. A constellation that had not been there before, made of 4 points of light that pulsed in perfect rhythm. The constellation of the Dragon Guards. Eternal watchers standing ready to defend all life from the darkness between stars, and at its heart the brightest star of all where Yuna and Bekrion kept vigil together, forever bonded, forever vigilant, forever free. The last dragon had awakened for her, and in awakening had discovered that he was not the last after all. He was the first of a new kind. Guardian and protected, united in common cause against the endless night. The galaxy was safe. Life would continue, and love had proven once again that it was stronger than any darkness that might arise to challenge it.